The purpose of this video is to make you aware of essentially everything you need to know when starting Hyperscape. The first thing I can suggest to you is to give this game more than a couple of games chance. I was playing with two people that already understand the game really well, and it took me about 3 games to get into the groove of it, actually start managing to get involved with the game, help my team out even though I still got carried, and had an understanding of how the game functioned. The most important thing I can suggest to you when you start playing Hyperscape is to go to your settings and change your sensitivities. For some reason, when you start playing this game, your sensitivities will be ridiculously high and it feels unwieldy. I personally play with 20 on both vertical and horizontal sensitivity, or this might change. Depending how I feel, this is just what started feeling good for me. And my controller ADS, low zoom and high zoom sensitivities are both 35. This could also be tweaked. These are just estimates. Well, these are just rough things I'm testing out. Because I only have like 5, 4, 6 hours of game time. So I'm still trying to figure things out as well, but I think I've got most of it understood at this point. I'm usually go for a mid-ish, I guess, sort of sensitivity in shooters, so let that be known. You may want considerably high, you may want considerably lower. This is just what's working for me at the moment. Before we get into the gameplay-based stuff as well, I'm going to suggest that while you're in your settings, you go to your controller layout preset, because you may want to change the button thing around. I personally use the 5th option called button ping, which has it so your pinging system is set to circle, which is a bit inconvenient, but I'm getting used to it. It has the right trigger, well, it has the right analog stick for crouching and sliding, and those are the main things it has going for it. Once you get into the game, it's going to be confusing. Everything's quite cyber, well, it's got this certain cyber-based theme to it, which I think is really cool. But you might get confused at first to what items are. You can pick up 2 hack abilities at once. Hack abilities are, well, hacks or abilities, will be bound if you're using my button layout to L1 and R1, and there's quite a lot of them in the game. All of them are viable, I think bar maybe one being detect, or whatever it's called. It's that all of them are really usable. I think the best are probably Slam, Teleport's pretty good, I think Heal is really powerful, and Shockwave. There's a bunch of viable ones, you can just mess around with them, they're all pretty fun. When you're carrying a hack, if you find another of that same ability lying across the ground or whatever, you can pick it up and it will fuse into a greater hack for yourself. And as you gradually build them up, each upgrade to a hack will lessen the cooldown. So it's worth. I don't know if there's a special ability for all of the hacks once they become maxed out, but at least in the case of the healing ability, it does double the effectiveness of the heal. The way the game forces conflict is the map shrinks, and we've seen this in other battle royales, but it's done kind of differently in this game. Instead of it being a ring that just goes through, it just takes out segments of the map. It doesn't necessarily end in a circle, I do not believe. The way this works is the buildings start decaying. Well, everything in the area starts decaying. It starts turning blue, it just looks pretty dead, and you don't have to leave the moment you start seeing this. This is just the beginning. The game will give you a countdown on the central middle area of your screen, and this gives you a general idea, well, this gives you an exact idea of how the decaying is going. Once it reaches 0, you really don't want to be there anymore, and at that point everything will just decay, disappear. You don't want to hang around there for too long, but the game is very kind to you, so you don't even have to check your map. The game will show you like a running man icon where it's safe. Where it shows you that is probably your, I'm imagining that is your nearest zone that's not decaying. And that's really considerate from the game. Here are a couple of basic game tips. It seems quite fast-paced, but I recommend that you do keep moving. You don't want to sit still for too long because there are weapons that can kill you really quickly. You spawn in with the highest possible health you can get. So you're not at a disadvantage, there's no people finding health kits and having a huge advantage over you. You spawn in with the same amount of health, there's no shields, apart from the invulnerability shield, and the wheel, the hacks, but we'll ignore those. So you spawn in at maximum HP. This will have a natural regen effect, so essentially you're always in the game. You're not at a health disadvantage in any way, which is really good for a casual standpoint. If you see glistening doors or windows that are like a yellowy orange, which they're a bit sparkly, you want to take them out with your melee weapon, or just whatever if you're in a rush, but mainly melee. And these will grant you access to interiors of buildings or escapes in buildings, and this is just how, if you see a building with these sort of doors, there's probably loot inside, unless it's already been gone through. It's worth to note, there is no normal melee feature. Much like in Fortnite, you can't just press a button and do a melee attack. You have to equip the melee weapon to be able to use it as a melee weapon. Keep in mind, you do have a double jump, and throughout the game different events will happen, at least on this default mode, such as extra double jump, which they're quite literal to their name, you can get the idea where they're coming from. In the middle of the streets there will be yellow circles on the floor, in the center of the street or whatever, scattered throughout the map, and these launch you up in the air to help you try and contest high ground, get on the move, run away, to do a multitude of things. It's worth paying attention to them because you don't really want to stay on the ground. I think a brilliant weapon to start off with, and as much as it's probably not good for me to encourage this meta, is the minigun. Weapons in this game can be a bit finicky with the highest movement and the highest sensitivity, at least in my case. I think the minigun's a good place to start, because it's pretty easy to reach the maximum potential of a minigun. It has really high ammo cap with a pretty quick reload. It only does 5 damage a shot or something like that, and like 8 with headshots, but it fires quickly. It can put damage downrange, not necessarily insane DPS, but it's consistent, and when you're learning the game, a consistent weapon is a great start. And the minigun, when you upgrade it, it can become really powerful. Well, pretty powerful. I don't think it's statistically incredible, but since everyone's learning the game, the minigun's consistency, and when you have multiple people doing it, the sheer power it possesses is insane. I'd highly recommend it when you want to start trying to learn how to aim. It's probably not ideal as it's probably considered a newbie weapon and whatnot, but you're learning the game, you gotta use what you gotta use, and it's personally really funny to use. When you max out your items, which have, I think they can get to level 4 to be maxed out, if you pick up one of the upgraded, if you find another item, say you've got a maxed out mammoth and you pick up another one, it will just reload the gun for you automatically, and with abilities it'll instantly cool them down. So it can be worth picking them up, but if you've got someone on your team who is also using it but they've not maxed it up, try to leave it so they can get it, because the upgrade they'll get from taking a minigun or something from like level 3 to level 4 will be considerably better than you just having no reload for that one mag. So try to keep your team in mind. Unless you're playing solo, then just go crazy. A couple more things I can recommend to you before you continue going on your way in Hyperscape is, I suggest you try and enjoy it now, before the meta is established, before everything becomes chaotic. Try to enjoy the game as much as you can before the metas are established. If they do incorporate skill-based matchmaking will probably suck most of the fun out of this game, because right now it's casual because no one knows what's going on. And even if you die early on or whatever, you don't need to leave the game. The thing that's good about this Battle Royale is it has a really, really good respawn system. And by really good I mean it's not tedious, you don't have to wait for 2 minutes to get back into the game. You become a Spectre and you can run over to where someone else has died, activate, you can stand there, hold square to activate, and this might be different with different button layouts. You can go there, and then when one of your teammates come over, they can start respawning you, and then bam, you're back in the game just like that. Another thing is, since there's quite a lot of ways to run away, you don't need to insta-land or die. If you don't get a gun straight away, you're not doomed. You can run, you can look for things. And since all of the hacks, or abilities, are viable at this stage, it really doesn't matter what you get. I think it'd be worth to note that I'm only 5 or 6 hours into the game at this point, so I don't know all the special tricks and whatnot about this game. But that's why I thought I would make this, because I believe I figured out the game decently enough to a stage where I can enjoy it and be successful with it. Since I'm still very much beginner, I kind of know what some of the people, or hopefully the majority of the people who are new to this game, are going to have the problems with. Like I've said, I personally didn't enjoy this game in the first game or so, but in my defense, in the first game I died like 6 times, got respawned 6 times, and spent most of the game in my controls menu trying to figure out what felt good. This game will take some getting used to, because it's got mobility, it's got pretty good pace to it, and the weapons feel unique, I'd like to say, or maybe it's just my settings, I really don't know. When you're in close range gunfights with most weapons, it seems you can just hip fire them instead of aiming them, and that'll be easier for you to do. Maybe aiming is a higher skill sort of thing and it'll be more rewarding later on, but for now hip fire seems very much to be the way to go. I would like to also suggest when you get into gunfights, don't stay on the ground, especially not on the flat ground, go on the buildings or something. If you're in a gunfight with someone and it's like some epic minigun hipfire brawl or something, I'd like to recommend that you jump. If you stay on the floor, and especially if you don't move, you're just going to get minced. But if you jump, people don't know when you're going to jump, and then you can double jump, and it'll throw off their aim, and you know you're going to do it, so you can prepare for it, but they don't know when you're going to jump and how you're going to jump. So I do think it's worth jumping in fights.